I've been using the GK68XS for about a week now, but is it any good? Hey everyone, I'm Super SG, and this is my review of Epomaker, I don't know how to pronounce their name, Epomaker GK68XS Wired Edition. I specifically kickstarted the Wired Edition on Kickstarter. I backed it. Finally came in the mail about 2 weeks ago. I've been using it for about a week, so I wanted to give my overall thoughts and my review on the keyboard. Full disclaimer, I'm not a mechanical keyboard snob, far from it. I own a couple of mechanical keyboards, but I wouldn't say I'm like a connoisseur or anything like that. I don't really care about how many grams it takes to actuate a switch or anything along those lines. I just really like the feel of mechanical keyboards, and because of that, that's why I use them in my day-to-day life. My primary keyboard is sitting on the desk right behind me. It's a Corsair K65 Lux RGB. And the very first mechanical keyboard that I have, I actually reviewed on this channel. It's the Eagletech KG010. If you're interested in the review, you can click that corner up in the right. It's a little outdated, and I would love to go back and revisit that keyboard sometime in a more modern fashion, but it's one of my first videos, and I'm still proud of it to this day, so I'm gonna keep it up there. So based on the two mechanical keyboards that I have, the GK68XS is gonna be one of the first boutique style keyboards that I have. It's a 60% keyboard, in case you couldn't tell. See, no keypad, no function keys, nothing along those lines. It's very bare bones. I'm very pleased with it, and I'm very happy that I backed it on Kickstarter. So let's go ahead and jump into the overall experience and what it's like to type on this. Now, like I said, I did fund this keyboard on Kickstarter, so that means that there were a couple different things going into this project. When you went on Epomaker's Kickstarter page, you could see that there were a couple different tiers that you could select. I think the cheapest was a $55 bare bones mechanical keyboard, and they went all the way up to almost $200 for this style of keyboard. Of course, between those layers, between those tiers rather, you could customize it. So I went with the $85 wired version. That was the wired Gatoron switch version. So it was a wired keyboard with a USB Type-C connection, and I also got the chance to choose my type of Gatoron switches, so it was really nice. I actually had the opportunity to customize the keyboard to my heart's content. So I was able to change my switch type between the Gatoron blue, brown, and red. I've never used a brown style switch before. The keyboard behind me, the Corsair, is a red switch, and then the Eagletech that I had before was a blue switch. I like the tactile feel, but I also don't want to be able to have loud clackiness, so I went with a brown switch to try it out. You also got to pick the plastic casing color, so I got to pick between white or black. I chose black. And you were also able to choose the keycap colors as well. So with the keycaps, they had a couple of different versions, but I went with the dark color scheme. I have the black plastic case. I also have the black and charcoal keycaps, along with the red accented keycaps for the arrow pad and the escape key as well. One thing that's really interesting about this keyboard is you notice the space bar down here, it's split into 3. This is actually customizable. That was one of the big selling points of this keyboard. So it was modular. You basically had 2 modules. You had a single space key that was just one key, one Gatoron switch, so that way it was just a single space, or you could customize it and have it split up into 3 different keys. So that way, if you wanted to, say, use the big one for the space key, and then the other 2 you could preset or remap to anything that you wanted to. That was an option. That's the option that I went to. So that way I can press one of those keys and then I could access my function keys, or I can access some shortcuts really quickly, or media functions. I really like the module design of the space bar on here. The overall unboxing experience as well, I was very impressed with. So I backed this in May of this year, I believe. And then shipping came in July, and I received it in very early August, I think August 2nd, around that time frame. But yeah, unboxing it was quite the experience. When you open up the box, the keyboard is front and center wrapped in plastic with all the accessories in the cardboard box behind it. All the accessories are wrapped in high quality plastic, and it made me feel good about the products not being damaged or scratched during shipment. I do want to commend Epomaker or Epomaker, however you pronounce it. I'm just going to keep going back and forth between them. But they had a stretch goal of $300,000, and that stretch goal was, if they reached that goal, they were going to give everyone the Mac keycaps as well, included with that stretch goal. Unfortunately, we didn't reach the stretch goal. We got $287,000 around there. But Epomaker, whatever, was very gracious and still honored that goal. So they gave everyone the 5-piece Mac keycaps anyway, even though we didn't reach that stretch goal, which I thought was awesome. Thank you, Epomaker, for doing that. I'm using this keyboard on my Mac specifically, so I really appreciate you doing that. Like I said, there's a customizable space bar on this, so right out the box, that's one of the main selling points. I swapped out that space bar for the modular space bar so I can customize the keys to my heart's content. When I started breaking in the keyboard, the keys were definitely a little bit stiff, but as I used it a little bit more and I typed and did a couple of different typing tests, those keys definitely wore in a little bit, so actuation was a little bit less resistant. And after using the keyboard for about a week, I'm definitely used to the way that the brown switches feel as well. Speaking of typing, the typing experience is very good. I'm actually very comfortable typing on it, but I would recommend that you possibly use a wrist rest with it. The keyboard does sit pretty high up, and I actually found it a little irritating at first. I have to get used to it, but I would definitely recommend using a wrist rest so that way your wrists aren't completely bent upward when you're typing on the keyboard, just to alleviate some pain on your wrists. My typical typing speed is around 70 words per minute, and I was able to achieve that with this keyboard after breaking it in a little bit. And in case you're wondering how the keyboard sounds when typing, here's a brief demonstration. I've never used a 60% keyboard before, so I did have to get used to the layout. The shift key on the right side is a little smaller than I would have liked, and of course the backspace button on this, Epomaker did a very strange thing. They shifted over the backspace key to the right one to make room for the tilde key. I don't know why they did that. It kind of screws me up every time I go to hit the backspace. I end up hitting the tilde key. But I mean, this is a 100% remappable. So if you wanted to avoid that and just make that the backspace key, you could do that. Speaking of remapping, all of the keys are remappable through the, I forgot the name of it, through the GK6X Plus driver software. That's a mouthful, but that is the name of the program, so I do have to say it. This software is only available on Windows. Sorry, Mac users. It's super confusing to use, isn't intuitive at all, and it doesn't really explain what can be customized on what layers. But after some trial and error and some experimenting, I was able to decipher the program and figure out how to remap keys, set macros, customize the RGB lighting on here. That's another thing I forgot to mention. RGB lighting, that's a really cool feature. Here's a brief rundown of what you can do with the customization software. You can remap layers 1 through 3, so all of the key presses can be remapped to whatever you would like. You cannot add macros to these layers, but you are able to add keyboard shortcuts like Control A or Command Shift 1, so you can add those key presses to specific keys. The standard layer cannot be edited. That's kind of the stock layer where you're not allowed to do anything. The only thing that can be customized is that's where you go to add your RGB effects 5 through 9, I believe. The driver layer also allows you to remap keys and add shortcuts and add macros. All the other layers do not support adding macros. In order to use the macros, you actually have to have the GK6X Plus driver program running in the background. And because it's a Windows exclusive, macros cannot be used on Mac devices. Rest in peace to us Apple users. The RGB lighting effects can be adjusted and customized in the LE Effects tab. This tab is very confusing and unintuitive, and it doesn't really describe how to do anything. The best thing that I can suggest is look at some other templates that are already in there, and maybe you can decipher how to add custom effects apart from just a static color. And the last tab of the program is the Macros tab. That's where you go in to create custom macros. So that way in your driver software, you're able to put your League of Legends and RuneScape macros so you can keep chopping down those willow trees to get all of that wood and sell it on the Grand Exchange. So although the driver doesn't exist on Mac devices, you still are able to customize layers 1 through 3 and adjust the lighting effects on a Windows machine and then save it. When you save it, it actually saves to the internal memory of the keyboard. So that way when you unplug the keyboard from a Windows machine and then plug it into a Mac, all of the presets that you have on layers 1 through 3 are gonna save in there. So you could potentially have a Windows specific layer and then a Mac specific layer. So that way when you're switching between machines, you can easily just switch the layers, and that way there's no confusion between what is your command key or your Windows key or anything along those lines. So we've come to the end of the video where I've given all of my thoughts on the keyboard and all the thoughts on the driver software as well. So what is my overall opinion on this $85 Kickstarted mechanical keyboard from Epomaker? I honestly enjoy typing on this keyboard a lot. Like, it's incredibly fun, and I don't know, there's something about a 60% keyboard. I've never used one before. It looks so small on the desk, and it makes your desk look so clean. I don't know. If you've never used a 60% keyboard, I'd recommend checking out the Epomaker GK68XS. Wow, that's a mouthful. I really like how I was able to customize the keyboard before it arrived. I was able to select the switches, the keycaps, the body, all of that was customizable, and I really appreciate the customization that they put into it. My version of the $85 wired keyboard might look completely different than someone else's version of the $85 wired keyboard. I do have one regret with this keyboard though, and I wish I got the Bluetooth version. The Bluetooth version, it was $10 more, and I was thinking, you know what, I don't need it because I'm gonna be using this keyboard at my work office, and I won't need to worry about having it on a Bluetooth. But now that the pandemic hit, and I'm definitely not gonna be going back to the office anytime soon, kinda wish I had the Bluetooth one, but you know, it's not the end of the world. USB-C wired is perfectly fine with me, but just wish I had thought about that. I also want to give a big shout out to Epomaker. They were very transparent during the entire Kickstarter process. They gave regular updates on shipments, regular updates on stretch goals, regular updates on announcements to fill out your survey so that way you could customize your keyboard. And they were very quick to respond to any questions that people had on any of their updates as well. You can tell that Epomaker really cares about this product, and honestly, it's been an amazing experience on Kickstarter. A lot of Kickstarter projects get a bad rep because there's lack of communication, but Epomaker did a really good job. So awesome job, Epomaker, appreciate that. This isn't the first keyboard Epomaker has made either. You can actually check in the link down below. I'll link their website. They have a couple other mechanical keyboards as well. And they also just launched a $49 Bluetooth version that has like a slot for a tablet, very similar to a Logitech keyboard. It has a little knob on the side that you can use for like media controls. Very cool. I'd recommend checking that one out as well. I might pick that up sometime. But yeah, if you go check out one of their products, let them know Super SG sent you, and Epomaker, thanks again. You did a fantastic job. One last thing before I go, if you're curious on my driver setup or on any of my layer setups, because I am a Mac and Windows user, and I do switch between the two operating systems all the time with this keyboard. If you're interested in what I have on my layers, just reach out to me, leave a comment down below, and maybe I'll make a separate video on just kind of a run through of my presets and also a run through of the driver software as well, because it's so confusing. Maybe I can give you a couple tips that you're missing out on. So thank you everyone so much for watching. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you in the next review.